What's up, guys? This is Rise, and welcome to another video where today the Great League is coming back, as well as the Ultra League and the Master League. And whenever there's a league switch, sometimes you may be wondering, what team do I run in the Go Battle League? Especially since we're going to have an extra 5 sets per day this coming week. Now, if you're wondering what do I run for the Great League, I've got you covered. And some of the top Indian battlers in the community also have you covered with some of their team suggestions. If you like this video, this type of content, feel free to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, share it with your neighbor, Mark, across the street. And here we go. Without further ado, the first 3 players that suggested some teams: Abhinav, the Portland 2024 Regional Champion; Vroom Vroom Pow, 2022 Sylph World Champion. The runner-up to that tournament was pretty good too. And Beezle Boy, top 5 in so many GBL seasons, just a consistent GBL top of the leaderboarder. Incredible player. And Abhinav starting things off with a pretty strong meta team: Azumarill, Vigoroth, and Shadow Gligar. Azumarill is going to be a little bit soft, assuming running Ice Beam, Play Rough to those steel types like Registeel, where it will struggle because of its lack of charge move coverage. You've got 2 things in the back that can really do some work against steel types. Of course, Vigoroth, with its moveset now, Rock Slide, has better coverage all around, but will require to go down shields against something like a Registeel. And one thing he has in the notes is if this Vigoroth can lure out a potential Skarmory, it's going to really open up Shadow Gligar as a closer in the back. Shadow Gligar, ever since the Wing Attack, Aerial Ace, and Dig buff, all 3 of its moves have been buffed at some point in time now, is a really strong overall Pokemon. And if there's usually not an Ice type or maybe something with oppressive water damage, Gligar can be extremely safe in the current meta. So team number 1 from Mr. Abhinav, I think, is a strong option to start for. Team number 2, coming from Vroom Vroom Pow, very similar to the Abhinav team, to be honest, except this team is more of an ABA style, meaning both the lead Pokemon and the back Pokemon are weak to something. I think in this case, Licky and Azumarill both don't want to see a potential Registeel, but other than that, there's not a whole lot of core breakers, I would say, between Lickitung and Azumarill. Lickitung, so good, so neutral with that lick, that body slam. It's got incredible bulk, and it's going to win you most neutral matchups. Azumarill is going to be the safe switch, actually, in this team, and it's designed as an ABB versus fighters from his point of view. And regular Gligar, a little bit of added bulk as opposed to the Shadow variant of Gligar, will help it in some matchups. Specifically, the Medicham matchup I know is quite a bit better with a regular Gligar because you're not as threatened by the Ice Punch. And the Shadow, he notes, would make for a better closer. So 2 similar teams to start things off, both featuring Azumarill and some form of Gligar and a normal type as well. There's the team from Vroom Vroom Pow. Next team comes from Beezle Boy, and he's got Skelly in the lead, a very popular pick these days. Skeledirge was nowhere to be seen in previous seasons. Now it has become maybe not top meta, but pretty close to it because of its ability to really grab shield advantage. The Incinerate buff has made its fast move damage so oppressive, and the energy from Incinerate gets to its charge moves relatively quickly. So Skeledirge in the lead. And it looks like Beezle Boy is actually going to be running Crunch on his Greedent as opposed to Trailblaze for a better matchup against Ghost types. But you could also run Trailblaze. I think Trailblaze actually makes sense. Maybe he is just noting what he thinks there as opposed as what the advantages of Crunch versus Trailblaze are. Because if you don't run Trailblaze with this team, I could see Carbink lead being a big issue. And Cresselia as a safe switch is always so good. With Cresselia, you also have the option to run Moonblast or Future Sight. I think Grass Knot is borderline a must-have as a legacy move in the Great League, just because of water types like Azumarill, rock types like Carbink, and other water types like Lantern, for example. Plus, it's nice just to have a cheaper energy move that you can get to relatively quickly and maybe outpace some Pokemon. Grass Knot's also nice for Poliwrath as well, but honestly, all 3 moves hit Poliwrath for super effective, so you're probably in a good spot either way there. Skelly, Cresselia, and Greedent. And one thing you can do with these teams, by the way, if you feel like there's maybe a flaw in them or they're too weak to something, you can take a look over on pvpoke.com. I have the first team from Abhinav already plugged in. We can go in the Great League and we can rate this team, see what it gives us. Gives us a C for coverage, a B for bulk, A for safety, A consistency. So C for coverage could be a little concerning. So let's make sure we look at the potential threats. And here are things that it says could give our team problem. And then we got to think, all right, can we handle these Pokemon? Well, against Skarmory, Azu is pretty neutral. I would think this is a pretty soft loss for Azu. Vigoroth the same. I'm pretty sure Vigoroth can win the 2-shield scenario straight body slam. Also, with Rock Slide, it wins the zeros if Skarmory doesn't throw Brave Bird. So Vigoroth has play there as well. And Gligar is, of course, going to struggle with a pretty hard counter matchup there. Same thing with like Mantine, Pelipper. I feel like all these Pokemon have play. Lantern, definitely going to hard beat Azumarill. If it has Water Gun, Azumarill can fare up a little bit better. But, you know, none of these Pokemon stick out to me as like, oh crap, this just beats our whole team. Jellicent might be the one that most fits that description, just because Jellicent, I would say, relatively comfortably beats Azumarill with Hex Shadow Ball. Vigoroth, if it's running Hex, Surf, Shadow Ball, it's going to need at least like 3 Surf to knock out Vig. So Vig, I think, can at least hold its own. And then Gligar, of course, is going to struggle. But I think Gligar as well can hit it back for neutral damage. So none of these Pokemon really jump out to me as like complete and total core breakers. Maybe they could be difficult to handle against other talented trainers, but I think there's still some play. So there's the Abhinav team on pvpoke, and we'll go back to the scene, and we're going to look at some of these other teams. We got 3 more trainers and then 1 bonus trainer that submitted his team. So let me scroll on up here. And the next 3 trainers we have are Nava Empire. Has hit number 1 on the GBL leaderboard multiple times. As a Rocks from India as well, a number 1 ranked Sylph trainer in the country of India back in 22, and Sir Zasht, a GBLA competitor and number 1 formerly on the GBL leaderboard just as of season 16. So these teams, Nava Empire, starting off with him. Nava Empire, by the way, is a cool story of someone that like never was really on the leaderboards, and then once fast move denial was fixed, it made such a big difference for him where he was actually able to like instantly be one of the top leaderboarders consistently. So anyway, he's running Skarmory, Cresselia, and Whiscash. Very common core, right? Skarmory and Whiscash, they cover each other so well. What's Skarmory weak to? Fire, Steel, Rock, and well, I guess not necessarily Rock. Fire, Steel, and Whiscash does well against those types. What's Whiscash weak to? Grass, and Skarmory completely walls grass-type Pokemon for the most part. And you've got Cresselia as your safe switch. I could see like a Bastiodon lead being a little bit tricky, but maybe they don't have a hard punish to the Cresselia safe swap. So with Grass Knot, Cresselia can at least hold its own against Bastiodon, spam off Grass Knots, maybe force a shield back, and give yourself a shot. And if they stay in against Cresselia, maybe the Skarmory will have a lot of play against the back line. So I don't think Bastiodon lead is the end of the world, but I could see it being a bit of an issue with that team. Kind of similarly, functioning with Azarox, we have a Talonflame lead and a Whiscash, similar to the Skarmory, right? They cover each other's weaknesses quite well. Talonflame is really strong and oppressive. It can be difficult to use, I think, because of that 5-turn fast move. So you may struggle to catch moves with the Talonflame because your opponent can kind of throw in the middle of that Incinerate animation. But Talonflame does have a lot of sweep potential as well. You can kind of use it just to like control switch advantage, maybe 2 shield through a lot of neutral matchups and win the lead. Lickitung we've already talked about as how good it is. It's a neutral Pokemon. And Whiscash as the closer, baby. You get those Scald debuffs, suddenly you're flipping some matchups in the positive direction. And let's see, he's got a subtext saying Druddigon, Jellicent, and Shadow Venusaur was his spicy team. But I guess he wanted to go with something a little bit more functional because, yeah, I could see Druddigon, Jellicent, and Shadow Venu struggling against any sort of ice type lead. But not a whole lot of ice in the top meta as we're seeing right now. Anyway, the next team comes from Sir Zasht. He's running Whimsicott lead with a Jellicent safe switch and a Lantern closer. Now, immediately, this team could, if you saw like a Venusaur, it's just over, right? It's just over, bro. But Sir Zasht, I mean, he's hit number 1 on the leaderboard for a reason. Sometimes it's not the teams that make the most sense per se, but the teams that counter the meta the best. And if there's like one Pokemon like a Venusaur that just beats your whole team, like how often are you really seeing a Venusaur? So if you're just willing to sacrifice the Venusaur you see as instant losses, but win against a lot of the other teams, maybe that's a pretty smart team. And it's the subtext says Surzac has been very successful in GBL with unusual Pokemon. Jellicent baits out the water type counter. That makes a lot of sense. And then if Jellicent lures out something like a Lantern, Whimsicott can farm the Lantern, maybe come out with some extra energy chip, and then hopefully your own Lantern in the back can put in a lot of work. Whimsicott, I've run a lot this season myself. I think it's a great Pokemon. Jellicent, of course, the Jelly Meister, very strong, and Lantern is an absolute beast, as we all know. I believe there is one final team to close out the video. We're going to drag this up here. Slide down Mr. Count Xevious with a spicy team to close it off. He's got Gliscor in the lead. Gliscor, kind of just to mix it up probably from Gligar, you have the option for Aerial Ace, Night Slash, Earthquake. I think Aerial Ace, yeah, it looks like he's thinking Aerial Ace as well. Makes more sense in the meta, as well as Earthquake to threaten with a hard-hitting charge move. Double, I've had a lot of fun with myself as a safe swap. Extremely neutral against a lot of Pokemon. You can opt to run Payback if you want more play against certain ghost types and steel ground types perhaps. You can also opt for Wild Charge, which can come in real handy against things like Azumarill, against things like Pelipper or Mantine, and then Tentacruel, or Squidward as I like to call him, which my mind was blown recently. I've been calling him Squidward forever, and I recently found out he's actually a jellyfish. He's not actually like a squid or an octopus, which makes sense if you look at him, right? He does, I guess, look kind of like a jellyfish. For some reason, my brain always just looked at Tentacruel as like a squid. Maybe it's because like tentacles is in the name, and I connect it with like Squidward tentacles. That's probably why. That's probably where the connection from me came, where I always call him Squidward. But apparently he's actually based on a jellyfish. So it is what it is. Tentacruel, a really annoying Pokemon to play against, to be honest, because you never know if they're going to Acid Spray bait you and then land the Scald. But it is a strong Pokemon nonetheless. And with that Scald buff we got, was that last season, I believe? Or maybe it was this season. I forget. Tentacruel, I think, is a really strong pick in this team. Although a little bit off meta, if you're looking to run something that's not as meta maybe as some of the other teams, impress your friends, this team I think could be one of the teams for you. So all that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. Shout out to Inadequance and Crazy Filmmaker who makes these graphics. I can leave a link to their Twitters in the description, and you can check out the full graphic and maybe download it for yourself, where you can have it handy if you're struggling with what team to run. Maybe share it with your friends. Share this video with your friends as well. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. It means a lot. And all that said, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.